About 5 months ago, Andrew Gower's latest game Brighter Shores was released in the alpha state. Before it came out, many Runescape players had high expectations for this game because the dream was that the guy who made one of the best MMOs of all time would surely make another masterpiece in 2024. On release, the game did actually quite decent. It got almost 20,000 people to sign up on day one, and it seemed to go in the right direction. But now, 5 months later, the game hasn't quite lived up to its expectations, and the daily player base has gone from 20,000 to almost 0 players online. Today, I want to dive into what happened with this game, how it's actually doing, and how does the future look like. Let's start with the good stuff. When I played this game on day 1 versus now 5 months later, the first thing I noticed was how incredibly good the music is. I will make a few comparisons with RuneScape since no matter what people think, it's the same person who made both games. They're still technically both MMOs, and there are certain aspects from both games that are very similar. One of those aspects is music. I love music in old school RuneScape. It's one of the most iconic parts of the game, and to this day I still have the entire playlist on repeat every time I play. Brighter Shores managed to fill me with the same joy again. The music is amazing, and I will have it playing on the background throughout this video just so you can get a feel for yourself. The other thing, I will try to not get too attached to the player count right now as the game is in alpha state. I mean, RuneScape started off the same way. In 2001, there was actually very few people that played RuneScape Classic, but the game got bigger and bigger over time, so the fact that the player base in Brighter Shores is currently at an all-time low is not the best argument in the grand scheme of things. Another thing I really enjoyed in-game is that they fixed your gear progression throughout the episodes. It used to be that it resets at the start of every episode, and that's no longer the case. You get to keep your armor and weapons even if you go to a new chapter, and that gives it a much better MMO experience. Also, I must say, and I know I'm gonna get some hate from RuneScape players on this one, but I think the skill caps look so much better in Brighter Shores than RuneScape. Their design is actually amazing, and I wish we had something similar in old school RuneScape as well. And this, unfortunately, is where the good stuff ends. Now let's talk about the bad stuff. First of all, can somebody please explain this to me because I just might be stupid. Why is it that the monthly subscription is $5.99 but the 3-month subscription is $7.99? Isn't the entire purpose of bigger purchases is that you pay less, especially when it comes to subscriptions? Also, the 1-year membership is $6.24 per month for some reason. Honestly, I have no idea what's going on here. Besides that confusing payment model, the main way to describe this game is that it's meant for people who have nothing going on in their life. And I know, that's a very rough statement to make, but everything about this game reminds me of those endless modes in different games that have no goal except to just keep going. Every zone from low level to high level is basically the same exact purpose. You can experience an entire skill within the first 20 levels, and after that it's just doing the same thing over and over again. Once you unlock level 20 skills in all chapters, that's it. That's the majority of the game unlocked. It seemed like the current design philosophy is just to recycle as much content as possible, from food to weapons to armor to even skilling supplies. It's a lot of the same thing with a different color. For example, look at this flounder. It's a level 0 requirement in fishing and the very first thing you catch. And then level 6 is another flounder but with a different color, level 12 another flounder, level 22, level 62, and guess what? This just keeps going and going and going until max level. There are a total of 9 flounders all within the fishing skill. Imagine if RuneScape had 9 different types of lobster. You have the green one, the red one, yellow one, pink one, blue one, and so on. It is so much filler content just to make it seem like you're trying out different things, even though it's the same thing with a different color. And the same can be said for weapons. You can get an epic purple crossbow that is level 99 and upgrade it from your current crossbow that is level 70. And then you realize you're just going through the entire combat skill using basically the same weapon with slightly better stats. This is how your weaponry looks like. Instead of using crossbows, shortbows, longbows, and dozens of other ranged weapons, you just use the same bow over and over again. But even if you take out the recycling of the same assets in different levels, the entire game itself feels like there is no end goal in sight. Like yeah, the maximum you can go is level 500 in skills, which technically is the end goal. But there are no bosses, there are no minigames, there are no encounters. You just level your skills and fight the same low level mobs you've been fighting for hundreds of hours. Honestly, to me, the player count doesn't even matter that much. Even if the game had 10,000 or 20,000 players online, it would make no difference because there is almost zero player interaction. You can't trade with other players, you can't go fight a boss together. Sometimes you want to talk to somebody, but you accidentally go to another square, and when you come back, that person isn't there anymore because the game rendered you into another instance. There's no clans, there's no parties, it's quite literally as lonely as it gets out here. And honestly, that doesn't feel like an MMO. Even though certain games are catered towards single player experience, you still get that feeling that the world is alive, and that adds so much more to your perception. Having that true sense of adventure is what MMOs are all about. Once again, Runescape is a great example of that. Allowing you to just wander around the entire world with almost no restrictions is what makes the game so enjoyable. On the other hand, Brighter Shores holds your hand throughout the chapters and tells you exactly what you're supposed to do and when you're supposed to do it. The game feels almost like a pre-written script that every player experiences the same way. There's no unique aspect to your gameplay, you just do what everyone else is doing, which is leveling to get to the next chapter. Most of the skills in the game have absolutely no utilities or use outside of just making money. You have this entire skill based around catching food and then making that food, but you can't even eat the food. Then you have a skill for gathering, and in the next chapter you also have a skill for gathering, but this time it's slightly different. And none of these gathering skills lead to a wider exploration. You can't even sell your gathering resources because there's no economy. None of your resources matter because there's no supply and demand. And then you have an entire skill revolved around construction, but you don't even have your player-owned house to put the furniture in. I mean, you get my point. It really feels like there is this massive chunk of MMO experience missing from the game. There's a Reddit comment that put it very nicely. The game is literally just what I used to do as a kid in school. Type 1 + 1 into a calculator, press equal, then keep pressing equal, and watch how high the number gets until the class ends. Honestly, that's quite the perfect encapsulation on what Brighter Shores currently is. Now, I will say, there is a player base for something like this. The game is stable at like 500 players online. Some people genuinely just enjoy not thinking about anything in the world and just mindlessly gaining levels. I know there is an appeal to that, I've seen it in Runescape as well, but I don't think that's enough to make the game successful. People value their time in 2025 more than ever. If there's nothing to look forward to, there is no reason to continue playing. I really was hoping that when I come back 5 months later, I get to see all these improved systems that were a problem on day one, but it seems like not much has changed. Now, granted, a lot of these things I mentioned will come into the game at some point, and they are in development. Andrew said that the team is working on PvP, working on trading, new quests, and even the very first boss, and all of this is supposed to be just the beginning. The problem with all of these new updates that Andrew promised is that they're still just promises, and nothing is actually happening. This timetable is a perfect way to illustrate how behind the developing process is. End of October, we got a statement from Andrew saying that he hoped to finish trading at the start of November 2024, but it won't be ready quite yet. 1 month later, start of December, we get another promise that trading is coming very soon, unless something else happens. End of January, there is a promise for 2 new quests coming into the game. End of February, there is an update that one of the quests is now completed. End of March, they are still making promises about updates that are coming very soon. But none of these things that they talked about for the past 5 months has made it into the game. There is still no quest, there is still no trading, no PvP, no bosses, no meaningful long-term content. Today, just before I was about to finish this video, we get another update saying that they're going to start working on an endgame raid. And the player base that is still left is already asking questions. If it takes 6 months to deliver a single quest to the game, how long will it take to release an endgame raid? Also, even talking about a raid before there are any bosses in the game seems like a very long stretch. Currently, everything seems to be just promises, and it might take months before we see any results. I genuinely believe this is still a passion project for Andrew, and the game just needs another 3 to 4 years of development before we start seeing an actual MMO experience. However, my biggest problem with future development is that everything seems to be different just for the sake of being different, and that hinders a lot of developing process. For example, last month they wanted to rework the entire combat profession because the current version was too difficult to understand. But somehow the new system is even more confusing. There already is a perfect combat system in old school Runescape, and they knew they were going to have thousands of Runescape players trying this out. All they had to do was revamp it a little bit to make it unique for Brighter Shores. Instead, the current system is pretty much the same as the old one, but with extra steps. And that is my biggest worry going forward. It feels like Andrew doesn't want to make a new RuneScape at any cost. But that also means he has to start inventing brand new systems that's never been seen before. And the result could backfire immediately, like we saw with the combat rework. I completely understand wanting to create new and unique gameplay experience. And they said from the beginning it's never supposed to be like RuneScape. But that also has its downsides that you can't simply ignore. So the team behind this game has to make a decision. Do they want the game to appeal to a wider audience that is familiar with the mechanics, or do they want to create a completely brand new experience that's never seen before, and it potentially driving people away because it's not tested? I really hope this game will turn out to be amazing in few years, and I want to believe it will. Andrew's company just hired new developers to work on the game, and there are new updates coming in once a month, but the game just desperately needs better fundamental systems and a lot more content. That's it. If they can work that out, I think this game could have a second chance. At the end of the day, the reality is simple. It took Andrew 10 years to release the game in this state, and the only meaningful update the game has gotten in the past 5 months is leaderboards, combat rework, and a temporary Christmas event. I believe the game will get better in the future, but at the moment I don't think it's worth paying $5.99 a month to access Brighter Shores. You really can get so much more value out of your money if you choose already established games instead of the ones that only have the base foundation available. But that's it from me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow with another RuneScape video. I love you all very much. Bye.